Menace is a turn-based tactical RPG where you recruit, upgrade, and command various squads of marines and vehicles across a range of planets, protecting the locals by fighting off pirates and aliens in randomly generated grid-based maps and missions. You decide which missions to choose and which squads to take, including the gear they'll bring, limited by your resources. You'll upgrade your ship, the Impetus, with weapons that can strike the planet from orbit mid-mission, sensors to increase the intel you receive prior to each mission, and various other upgrades to help you reach the end of the campaign as your squads take damage and take time to recover, forcing you to juggle what limited resources you have. So if you like the sound of chess-like combat as you maneuver your squads to pin and flank the enemy, unlocking upgrades to help you meet the increasing challenge of the campaign, and randomly generated missions within a very solid early access game that's released to good reviews, Menace might be your cup of tea. If that helped you decide already, then great, I'll catch you later. But if you want more detail, then listen up, as I'm going to tell you exactly what it's like to play this game. Broadly speaking, Menace is split into the following sections: planning a mission, upgrading your squad and your ship, then there's the fighting, which is where we'll start, as that is by far the best part. When you're in a mission, you take it in turns with the enemy to move your individual squads. You move one, they move one. You move one, and so on, until one of you has no other squads left to move, then the other will move all of their remaining squads. This matters because you will often be outnumbered, so once all of your squads have taken their turn, you have to sit back and wince as your opponent moves their remaining squads, taking chunks out of yours while all you can do is watch. Each squad has a certain number of action points, which dictate how much that squad can do each turn, whether that's how far they move, taking cover, or indeed shooting. Everything consumes action points, making it your number one resource to manage. Some squads have more action points than others, and they can be increased as a squad is upgraded and decreased mid-battle, which we'll discuss in a moment. The first thing you'll do is move your squad. Moving further consumes more action points, and you can preview exactly how many you'll have left before committing to each move. And you can move one square at a time if you so wish, so you're not fully committed to your move with one click. Various forms of cover are scattered across the map, providing different levels of protection as indicated by the shield icons. Cover is directional, so ideally at the end of your move, that squad will be in some sort of cover, facing the direction you anticipate fire to come from so they can survive until their next turn. Leaving your squads in the open is a recipe for disaster, as a squad in the open can easily be wiped in one shot. Even with decent cover, a squad can take heavy damage. So when deciding how far your squad is going to move, you need to ensure they have enough action points at the end so they can spend some deploying, which is basically getting their heads down rather than standing up. If a squad can get into good cover and also deploy, they can take a lot of enemy fire while taking minimal damage. Another consideration when moving is that each weapon has a level of accuracy that changes depending on how far away the opponent is, and also damage drop-off, which increases as the distance increases. And with most weapons, there will be a sweet spot where the optimum accuracy and damage will be something like 4 squares away, so ideally that's where the enemy squad will be when your squad opens fire. That doesn't necessarily mean the weapon is useless outside of that optimum range, but it is a consideration when positioning your squads, and it varies from weapon to weapon. Although units may have decent cover and be deployed, so they take hardly any damage, they will likely suffer suppression while under fire. This mechanic is rather brutal as action points are reduced the more a squad is suppressed, and before long, that unit won't be able to do anything other than crawl 1 or 2 spaces away. Suppression in this game is a big deal, and although it reduces each turn a squad doesn't receive fire, you will want to avoid it at all costs and inflict it upon enemy squads so you can anchor them in place and flank them. Another benefit of deploying your squad is that while deployed, they can use their secondary weapon, such as a heavy machine gun or a rocket launcher that's used by the squad leader. There are also other weapons, such as a wide variety of grenades, explosives, and basically there are a lot of different weapons in this game, which you can equip your squads with. Once you throw all of this together, the game has a very strong gameplay loop when fighting your battles. Although there is more for us to cover in a moment, this gameplay loop is what makes the game so strong. There's nothing especially new here, but the combination and weighting of these different mechanics makes for an addictive chess-like experience that's grounded in reality, rewards forward thinking and tactics, and punishes rushed movement. At the beginning of the game, you'll be fighting against pirates. They're relatively easy to dispatch once you've gotten to grips with the game's basics, mostly coming at you either on foot, potentially being transported by a vehicle at first, and in some instances vehicles that can do some damage. However, beyond the pirates are the two main factions you will need to deal with across a Menace campaign: the Rogue Army and the Aliens. The Rogue Army uses a diverse arsenal, with both infantry squads and vehicles using an array of weaponry, from machine guns, ATGMs, mortars, and even laser weapons and artillery. They're an intimidating outfit that engage at range with powerful weapons. You'll need to keep moving while staying in cover, picking off their most vulnerable and powerful units, which is easier said than done. Then we have the Aliens, which are at the complete other end of the spectrum, in that they are melee-focused for the most part. You need to maintain distance, focus on the larger bugs, and just generally channel your inner Starship Troopers mobile infantry. A quick mention to the AI. Often in these games, the AI is lacking in its tactics, becoming a bit too predictable. Personally, I found the AI presented a decent challenge, and I can see from the Steam reviews that I'm not alone in that assessment. Though there will always be players who don't feel challenged by the enemy AI, Menace puts in a respectable performance compared with its close rivals. This game includes a surprisingly wide array of gear for you to equip your squads and vehicles with. We're talking various assault rifles, grenades, flamethrowers, machine guns, rocket launchers, demolition charges, and so much more. That gives you plenty of different options on the battlefield, and also much to think about prior to the battle when deciding how best to spend your resource points while equipping your squads for the upcoming mission. Planning an operation is a relatively brief but key part of the game. You are presented with a randomly generated map and mission which reveals certain details about the terrain, cover, and location and type of enemies, depending on your level of intelligence, which is increased by upgrading your ship. You have a limited amount of resources, which determines how many squads you can deploy and how much equipment they can take with them. Everything has a cost, which creates some real head-scratching moments as you try to optimize each squad's loadout and bring the right tools for the job based on the limited information available. Outside of planning and executing missions, you'll be presented with some admin, starting with the system map, which shows you the different planets and a choice of operations. Bear in mind, each operation is made up of multiple missions, and you get to choose which missions to complete along the path to the final mission, which will complete that operation. Also on the system map, you will see there are different factions which are friendly or not, depending on how you interact with them, with the diplomacy system of sorts. This isn't a particularly strong focus of the game, but you do get to make some narrative decisions, which affects how much each faction likes you. Between missions, you get the chance to upgrade your ship, the Impetus. There isn't a whole ton of customization options, but some of the upgrades are particularly useful, like having the ability to call in a missile mid-mission. You can have a medbay, a repair bay to help repair your vehicles, a recruitment office to help swell your numbers, among several other upgradable options. It's a pretty basic system, but some of these upgrades are basically mandatory to help you survive the increasingly difficult missions. As the game progresses, you can hire more squad leaders, which is important, as although using the same squad leaders will upgrade them, you'll soon find they'll become exhausted and need to be rested, making rotation an absolute must. Your squad leader is the persistent upgradable element of your squad, but you can also include up to 8 squaddies in each squad. The more squaddies, the more firepower and increased resilience of the squad. However, you only have a limited number, so may have to spread them evenly or unevenly across your squads, depending on your needs. Squaddies will die in battle and can be easily replenished, but there is a finite number of them, and there are limited opportunities to gain more, so you have to treat them with some care. As the game progresses, you hire more squad leaders with different skill sets, and they are upgradable as the game continues. There will be points where you have to decide between 4 well-equipped squads or 6 less well-equipped squads, but at least those 6 can move more and give you more flanking opportunities. As you complete missions, you gain loot, basically weapons and equipment. Much of that loot you won't want to keep, which is where the black market comes in. Each piece of equipment or weaponry has a value, which can be traded for more desirable items on the black market. This is also how you gain new squad leaders, better armor, different and stronger weapons, as well as a whole range of equipment. The black market is absolutely essential, and once again, trading will have you scratching your head as you sift through what you do and don't need, and see if it's enough to purchase that desperately needed anti-armor firepower that you currently lack. It's worth noting that one of the reasons Menace has been so well received is the frequency and quality of updates since release. There has been a ton of bug fixing and plenty of communication from the devs, which of course you could argue is nothing special and simply what they should be doing, but given the amount of developers that don't, it is certainly a breath of fresh air and a promising sign for the future of the game. So with all that said, who will Menace appeal to, and should you purchase it today? In many respects, a turn-based strategy game speaks for itself. Many gamers either love them or hate them, which makes my job much easier. However, if you love XCOM 2 and you're wondering whether Menace will be the next big thing, from my experience, nothing will contend with the strong feelings XCOM 2 players have towards that game. So no, Menace won't replace XCOM 2. However, remember, you are allowed to play other games, and I suspect Menace would be a great fit for those XCOM 2 players. Something I feel is important to highlight is that Menace has a steep learning curve, albeit a short one. You'll get your ass kicked in your first few rounds, but it honestly doesn't take much to learn the basics and get over that learning curve. Then, once you're lulled into a false sense of security, the game really cranks up the difficulty as you progress through the campaign. I say this because many curious players will give up after the first few missions, but I promise it's worth persevering. However, Menace is generally a brutal game, so if that's not what you're looking for, I suggest looking elsewhere. All in all, Menace is a very well put together early access title, which is why it has been so well received. There's something to be said these days for a game that is released in a solid state and is receiving plenty of attention from the devs. It's depressingly uncommon, and so we must highlight games that are simply solid and decent. I, for one, am happy to class Menace as such a game, and I reckon for some players, that alone is enough to make a game worth a second look. For me, the price point is a little on the steep side, but then again, my head is stuck in the 90s when it comes to pricing. But if you can pick up Menace with even a modest discount, I say to you, it will be absolutely worth it, even if you're not well acquainted with the turn-based strategy genre. If you have any questions at all, please let me know in the comments below. If you like this style of review, please check out my other videos, as every view and comment is appreciated more than you know. Game requests are always welcome, and I hope to see you in the next one.